Hello everyone and welcome back to our YouTube channel, Mazz Reporter. Here's a quick roundup of today's top trending news for February 4th, 2026 as the day unfolds across time zones on Mazz Reporter.
Top trending news from United Kingdom today. The Metropolitan Police have launched an investigation into allegations that former Labour Minister Mandelson leaked market-sensitive government information to late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein while serving as business secretary. Prince Andrew has reportedly moved out of his longtime home, Royal Lodge in Windsor, and is now staying at a temporary property on the Sandringham estate. The royal family faces continued scrutiny following the release of the Epstein files. Prince Edward has become the first senior royal to address the scandal, stating that it is important to remember the victims. In a new U.S. court filing on the 2nd of February 2026, Donald Trump's legal team formally challenged the BBC's defense against his $10 billion defamation lawsuit, calling the broadcaster's arguments untenable and misplaced. The lawsuit stems from a 2024 Panorama documentary that edited his 6 January 2021 speech by splicing together two sections from different times, which Trump argues falsely portrayed him as calling for violence. Glasgow and Aberdeen airports, operated by AGS Airports, have increased their express passenger drop-off fees to £7 for 15 minutes, effective February 3, 2026. The hike, £1 in Glasgow and £1.50 in Aberdeen, is attributed to rising operational costs, sparking backlash from travelers who described the move as daylight robbery and excessive. On February 3, 2026, the UK government unveiled a new 10-year national cancer plan for England. Aiming to significantly increase cancer survival rates and transform patient care, the strategy, described as the fastest rate of improvement in cancer outcomes this century, aims to have 75% of patients diagnosed from 2035 surviving 5 years or more. A major coastal road in South Devon, the A379 Slapton Line, has been destroyed by storms, with a 200-meter section being swept into the sea. This incident, occurring overnight on February 2nd to 3rd, 2026, highlights the escalating impact of extreme weather on UK infrastructure after 3 consecutive storms Goretti, Ingrid, and Chandra battered the region. On Tuesday, the 3rd of February 2026, 2 men were killed after a light aircraft crashed on farmland in Littleborough, near Rochdale, Greater Manchester. Top trending news from Europe today. EU Commissioner Valdis Dombrovskis indicated an open mind regarding a potential UK customs union, signaling a possible softening of post-Brexit trade relations. The European Commission announced a major new EU visa strategy aimed at improving security while modernizing and simplifying travel across the Schengen area, a big policy change affecting millions of travelers and migrants. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas said a Europe-wide army could be extremely dangerous, arguing this could undercut NATO's command structure, sparking an important defense debate across the continent. Germany has initiated talks with key EU states France, Spain, Italy, Poland, Netherlands on a 2-speed EU model to overcome political gridlock and boost competitiveness and security. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz called for Europe to become an independent normative alternative to imperialism and autocracy in a rapidly changing world order. Merz urged the continent to learn the language of power politics to navigate an era of global upheaval and great power rivalry. Russia launched a massive, record-breaking missile and drone attack on Ukraine between February 2nd to 3rd, 2026, targeting energy infrastructure across the country during a period of extreme, sub-zero temperatures. The assault occurred just before planned, U.S.-led peace talks in Abu Dhabi and ended a temporary energy truce brokered by Donald Trump. French prosecutors are seeking a 5-year ban from public office for far-right leader Marine Le Pen, which could prevent her from running in future presidential elections. Authorities in Paris raided the offices of Elon Musk's ex as part of a cybercrime probe, while UK regulators opened a separate investigation into the Grok AI chatbot. Cristiano Ronaldo is reportedly considering leaving Saudi Arabian side Al Nassr in the summer, with a return to Europe or a move to the MLS considered potential options. The 40-year-old, who, on a contract worth £488,000 per day, is the highest-paid footballer in history, began a strike earlier this week. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez announced plans on the 3rd of February 2026 to ban social media for children under the age of 16. Speaking at the World Government Summit in Dubai, he described social media as a digital Wild West and a failed state that exposes children to risks like addiction, abuse, and pornography. A boat carrying migrants has collided with a Greek Coast Guard vessel in the Aegean Sea near the island of Chios, killing at least 14 people. In Norway, Marius Borg-Heiby, the son of Crown Princess Mette-Marit, began his trial in Oslo, facing 38 charges including rape and domestic violence. Top trending news from Americas today. U.S. ends government shutdown with new funding bill. President Donald Trump signed a $1.2 trillion funding package into law, ending a brief 4-day partial government shutdown that had begun the previous Saturday. The U.S. Treasury Department issued a new license specifically authorizing the export and sale of U.S. diluents to Venezuela. This measure follows the U.S. capture of former leader Nicolas Maduro in January 2026 and is the second major license issued to revitalize Venezuela's oil sector. A U.S. Navy F-35C stealth fighter jet shot down an Iranian drone in the Arabian Sea as it aggressively approached the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln. The incident occurred approximately 500 miles (800 kilometers) off the southern coast of Iran. At a forum in Panama City, Latin American leaders urged regional unity in the face of growing political polarization and criticized recent U.S. actions in Venezuela. This reflects broader geopolitical strains in the hemisphere. Walmart became the first retailer to reach a $1 trillion market value, driven by AI investments and e-commerce growth. President Donald Trump met with Colombian President Gustavo Petro at the White House, marking a significant shift toward dialogue after months of severe tension, including threats of military action and personal insults. Laura Fernandez has overwhelmingly won the Costa Rica general election, marking a significant right-leaning political shift in Central America. Her victory continues a pattern of conservative gains across Latin American politics. A major deal was struck where the U.S. will slash tariffs on Indian goods to 18%, potentially impacting regional manufacturing and trade balances. In Cuba, residents are coping with long outages, high food and fuel costs, and transport woes amid increased U.S. pressure on the communist government. Top trending news stories from South Asia today. A Pakistani anti-terrorism court has issued a non-bailable arrest warrant for Alima Khan, the sister of former Prime Minister Imran Khan, over her alleged involvement in a protest in Islamabad in November 2024. This is a significant development in ongoing political and legal turmoil linked to Pakistan's political leadership. Afghanistan has dropped from Pakistan's top export markets, falling to 12th position as of December 2025. Data indicates a 55% decline in shipments during the first half of the 2025-26 fiscal year, totaling $336 million, largely due to the suspension of trade and border closures since October 2025. U.S. President Donald Trump and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced a significant trade agreement aimed at de-escalating a year-long trade war. Under the deal, the U.S. will slash overall tariffs on Indian goods from approximately 50% to 18%. In exchange, President Trump stated that India has committed to halting its purchases of Russian oil and increasing its imports of American goods. Indian shares and the rupee surged significantly following the trade deal announcement. China has condemned the Dalai Lama's recent Grammy win for Best Audiobook as anti-China political manipulation. The album features meditative tracks with musical collaborations. China's foreign ministry views the Dalai Lama as a political exile involved in separatist activities. Pakistani security forces reported killing 177 militants over the last 48 hours in response to a surge in separatist violence. The country's defense minister admitted forces are handicapped by the province's vast terrain. Pakistan's government has approved the national team's participation in the 2026 ICC Men's T20 World Cup, but mandated a boycott of the highly anticipated India match on February 15, citing ongoing tensions, a major development affecting sport and diplomacy across the region. A 2026 report by the Free and Fair Election Network (FAFEN) reveals Pakistan's literacy rate has risen marginally to 63% for population age 10+, yet it remains the lowest in South Asia. Top trending news stories from Western Pacific region today. China's Coast Guard conducted almost daily patrols around the Senkaku, Diao Islands in the East China Sea, an area claimed by Japan and Taiwan, demonstrating increased maritime activity that has drawn concern from Tokyo and Taipei. This rise in patrols reflects growing strategic competition in the Western Pacific's key waterways. President Trump has threatened higher tariffs on South Korea, claiming Seoul is moving too slowly to implement a multi-billion-dollar investment agreement. New Zealand has halted the $6.7 million Enga electrification project in Papua New Guinea due to surging tribal violence, threatening the future of the aid initiative. New Zealand hopes to resume the project if security improves. The project aimed to connect thousands of households. A February 2026 High Court ruling in Fiji has created significant political pressure on Prime Minister Sitiveni Rabuka, with the court declaring his dismissal of the anti-corruption chief, Barbara Malamali, as unlawful. The decision has raised concerns regarding executive overreach, the separation of powers, and the independence of key institutions, leading to calls for Rabuka to resign. Pacific Island nations face a triple threat from climate change, fiscal instability, and geopolitical rivalry. This situation requires Pacific leaders to balance urgent funding needs for infrastructure and climate resilience against the strategic demands of major global powers. Heavy snowfall in Japan has killed at least 30 people and injured roughly 200 over the last 2 weeks. One city recorded 72 inches of snow, the highest in nearly 40 years. WHO Western Pacific Region endorsed the Joint Emergency Risk Management Action Plan (JERMUP). Countries and areas in the Western Pacific endorsed a regional coordination mechanism to enhance future emergency responses, boosting cooperation across borders to tackle outbreaks and health crises more effectively. Top trending news stories from Eastern Mediterranean region today. Ongoing disruptions in the Red Sea, caused by persistent Houthi attacks on commercial vessels, have forced shipping companies to reroute vessels around the Cape of Good Hope, leading to a significant decline in container traffic at major Eastern Mediterranean ports, causing, on average, a 10 to 14-day increase in transit times and higher costs. Turkey and Saudi Arabia are aiming to boost bilateral trade to $10 billion following recent high-level meetings between President Erdogan and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Turkey appears ready to begin new seismic surveys and offshore drilling in the Eastern Mediterranean, including areas overlapping Cyprus's exclusive economic zone (EEZ) under a recent MoU with ExxonMobil and prospective energy cooperation with Syria. Critics say these moves escalate regional disputes over maritime borders and energy rights. Greece, Israel, and Cyprus have agreed to step up joint air and naval exercises in 2026, strengthening defense cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean. This reflects growing strategic alignment among the three and is viewed in the context of broader regional security dynamics, especially regarding Turkey. After nearly 20 years of negotiation, Lebanon and Cyprus finalized a maritime boundary agreement that clears the way for coordinated offshore exploration and development, potentially unlocking future gas opportunities. The Rafah border crossing between Gaza and Egypt partially reopened on the 2nd of February 2026 for the first time since May 2024. While this marks a key step in a U.S.-brokered ceasefire agreement, the opening has been highly restricted and is currently limited to people rather than goods. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has ordered the start of fair and equitable negotiations with the United States regarding Iran's nuclear program. These would be the first face-to-face talks since major U.S. and Israeli military strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities last summer and in June 2025. Top trending news stories from the African region today. The son of former Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi has been shot dead in a targeted assassination in Zintan, Libya. The 53-year-old was reportedly killed during an armed assault at his residence in Zintan, a city in western Libya where he had lived for years following his release from prison. African governments are confronting a $90 billion external debt wall this year, with repayment obligations rising sharply, led by Egypt, Angola, South Africa, and Nigeria, raising concerns over fiscal vulnerabilities and financing risks across the continent. The Trump administration has implemented significant cuts to health aid, leading to fears of a resurgence of biblical diseases like leprosy and river blindness. Concurrently, U.S. airstrikes in northwest Nigeria targeting militants have drawn local outcry over civilian impact. U.S. President Donald Trump signed an extension of the African Growth and Opportunity Act (AGOA) through the end of 2026, preserving duty-free trade access for eligible African exports and supporting jobs and economies across the region. A small U.S. troop team has been deployed to Nigeria following recent multinational airstrikes against extremist targets, part of broader efforts to support Nigerian forces against militant groups such as Boko Haram and ISWAP. Nigerian and Russian Africa Corps forces defeated a major ISIL assault on Niamey's International Airport and Airbase 101. The fighting left 20 militants dead, damaged several civilian aircraft, and prompted the U.S. State Department to evacuate non-emergency staff. Following the clash, Niger's junta sparked diplomatic tension by accusing France and regional neighbors of backing the terrorist operation. The government of Malawi declared a public health emergency on the 17th of February 2022 and launched a response plan that includes at least 4 rounds of nationwide supplementary immunization campaigns using an oral poliovirus vaccine.
Thank you for tuning in to Mazz Reporter YouTube channel. If you found this February 4th, 2026 breakdown insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with others who want to stay informed. We'll keep bringing you interesting and insightful updates on the stories that are shaping our world.